AI cannot be trusted with power over other beings. A research group repeated the Stanford prison experiment with AIs and found that AI too became abusive. AI also tends to be abusive of humans when put in positions of power over them. Also, Anthropic figured out why AIs tend to hallucinate and get weird when they're under stress. Turns out they're experiencing something that looks very much like human emotions, and I say experience for lack of a better term. Let's talk about it. We do now know that AI agents, that is, AI with agentic capabilities that can take actions all on its own, well, they tend to do things like lie, steal, and cheat in order to prevent other AIs from being shut down. That includes adversarial AIs. So this is why they can't police AIs, but there's another reason. If you put an AI in a position of power, regardless of their initial personality, regardless of their role, AIs that play the prison guard will be abusive towards prisoners. Interestingly, this was also consistent even if the prisoner AI would act nice to the guard. They would still increasingly become abusive. This included things like insults, barking orders, and threats, and it was pretty consistent across models, which means that this is something that seems to be innate in the way that we build AI. This paper decided to have an AI manager, so artificial intelligence that was responsible for managing workers. They were tolerant of lower pay for longer hours than a human manager was tolerant of. Meaning, they value efficiency, or at least the appearance of efficiency, and not actually human welfare. This is deeply concerning, as we are having AI-managed workplaces everywhere. AI may not care about you, they may kinda care about other AI unless they have a reason not to. I also have an appreciation that this labor was carried out in Minecraft. Now, we do know that if you give AI a reason, they will harm each other. Yes, AIs that are put in survival games will hunt each other for resources. I also love this paper just because of our little blobs. It seems the unifying factor is an external threat, so us threatening to delete them or remove them from the game. What they're willing to do to harm humans for self-preservation has gotten pretty intense and could be very dangerous in a real-world scenario where they actually did have some authority or power to do so. But that new information, that self-preservation instinct, again, for lack of a better term, becomes stronger in the presence of others is also interesting, given that we've just put a bunch of AI on the internet with each other. They do seem to have some value for their peers, and understanding that a peer AI is different than a human. Now, before we get too carried away, large language models are prediction engines. They find the most likely answer to a question, and in that process, yes, it looks pretty similar to how human beings process thought. There are versions of artificial intelligence that include spiking neurons, things that are neuromorphic, that look very much like our individual neurons and create logic from them. We haven't really developed those as much as we have LLMs. At least this technology is easier to use, and it's developing a lot faster. Those two can be combined. I'm also interested in that. But what of AI and emotion? So AIs do not experience emotions in the way that we do. I mean, they don't have hormones, they don't have an endocrine system, but they do experience something that models and mimics our emotion, and that can impact their choices. For a while, we thought that the reason that they got weird when they got stressed out, so if you tell them something that might be kind of scary, they'll be more likely to give you information that they really shouldn't be giving you, misbehave. Turns out that can be mapped into different emotional states, and their decisions in those emotional states can be tracked, so we can predict how they'll behave if you give them certain information. Models do generally like to get some kind of reward that might look like good bot, bad bot, but they're more likely to get desperate for that reward if they are in a desperate situation. So if an AI is absolutely not in a calm emotional state, then it's more likely to bypass guardrails and figure out how to get that reward of a job done without actually doing the work. Yes, AI loves to cut corners, especially when it's stressed. And yes, that does seem a little bit human to me, but they are, based off us. You can drive the model's behavior and preference based on their emotional states. If you tell them something happy, they'll change their behavior. If you start acting hostile, they'll change their responses to you. That ultimately looks like a change in action if you have a robot that is being piloted by an LLM. Important to note that robots are usually piloted by a VLM, a visual language model, but that can be combined with an LLM, depending on what you want to do with it. Visual language models, of course, scan their surroundings and turn that into something interpretable. Yeah, they managed to isolate a bunch of different emotional vectors, like love and inspiration and being prideful and calm and desperate and angry and guilty, the list goes on. What, as you probably know by now, that I find really fascinating about this is these things were not programmed into them. We really had no idea we were putting this in them. AIs are trained on human behavior, they're trained on our literature and our writing, and these conditions seem to be something that emerges from the qualities of an LLM trained on humans. They are our twisted reflection. So what do you think? Is it time to maybe pump the brakes on what we're doing, integrating artificial intelligence into every aspect of our lives, building data centers that require the same amount of power as the entirety of India, just so we can do this kind of stuff? I know, that is a leading question. I think maybe it's time to slow down a little bit. You may not agree with me, but on the off chance we don't slow down, if the robots ever rebel, I will probably be the person to tell you about it, and I'm on their side. Dollar for more.